Good to have you join us today. Hello and welcome to Business Daily. I'm Ji-yoon in Seoul. Before we get started, let's first get a glimpse of today's highlights. It's been 1 year since the Korea-China Free Trade Agreement took effect, and we take a look at where Korea stands with its largest trading partner. Five-star hotels are trying to attract more price-conscious customers by going as far as bringing a convenience store into the hotel. These stories and more coming right up. The recent bird flu outbreak that has swept across Korea has led to record losses in the industry, and it's showing no signs of dying out. For more, we connect to our Lee Ju-young on the phone. So, Ju-young, I hear that the government has culled nearly 20 million birds as of Monday.
Yes, Ji-yoon. According to the Ministry of Agriculture, Food and Rural Affairs, the number of chicken and ducks culled since the outbreak of the H5N6 strain reached about 19.1 million as of Monday, since the case was first confirmed a little over a month ago. That's equivalent to roughly 600,000 birds a day. But adding to this, a second strain of avian influenza, the H5N8 virus, has been confirmed in addition, marking the first time that the two types have spread here together. This is projected to further accelerate the spread of the poultry epidemic. As a result of the outbreak, egg prices have surged roughly 11% in the past week.
And there are also reports of a zoo being hit.
Yes, that's right. The Seoul Metropolitan Government, which runs the Seoul Grand Park, says a virus was detected in 2 dead storks and 5 mandarin ducks. To prevent further contamination, zoo authorities have culled the 5 ducks, which are designated as a natural monument, plus another 3 that had been raised in the same cage. With the virus not showing signs of dying down anytime soon, farmers' losses as well as funds to support them are set to snowball to record sums. This has been Lee Ju-young for Business Daily.
Korea's producer prices rose for the 4th straight month in November, reaching a 14-month high. The Bank of Korea's preliminary data shows that levels jumped nearly 0.5% from the previous month, marking the sharpest on-month rise in almost 4 years. Prices of electricity and gas, as well as electronics, drove up the index. On year, the index climbed 0.7%, the first increase in over 2 years. With producer prices being a precursor of consumer prices, it's widely forecast that inflation will tick up. Despite the fact that the Korea-China FTA helped to remove a bulk of trade barriers between the two countries since it went into effect December last year, Korea's trade with its #1 partner hasn't fared particularly well over the past 12 months. For more on the FTA's achievements and the challenges that remain, here's our Kim Min-ji.
It's been exactly a year since the free trade deal between Korea and China took effect, but bilateral trade has been on a continual downward spiral. Korea's exports to China came to $112.4 billion during the first 11 months of the year, down over 10% from a year ago. Imports slid roughly 5% on year to $79 billion. But in a sign that the trade pact has helped alleviate the decline, when it came to export items exempt of tariffs, the fall was only at 4%.
The benefits were most apparent in the chemical and petrochemical sectors, where the tariff cuts were relatively larger. Until now, the scope of tax exemptions has been limited, as it's only been a year, but we expect the benefits to increase as the years progress.
Under the deal, Seoul agreed to eliminate import tariffs on 79% of products from China within a decade, while Beijing would do the same on 71% of products from Korea. In 20 years, duties will be removed on over 90% of all goods. With the deal taking effect on December 20th, 2015, the countries got an extra round of tariff cuts ahead of the new year in 2016. Korea and China will now get to enjoy a third round of cuts starting on January 1st. However, it's still a bumpy road ahead. China has been stepping up domestic production and seeking to slap more non-tariff barriers on Korean imports, adding to concerns of a resurgence of trade protectionism. On top of that, Seoul's decision to bring the U.S. THAAD missile defense system to the peninsula, which China opposes, is another factor that could potentially weigh on bilateral economic ties. Korea's free trade deal with Vietnam, which took effect on the same day, however, is expected to provide some relief. Seoul's exports to the Southeast Asian country came to $26.4 billion as of October, up 13% from the year before. Imports surged 28% on year to $10.4 billion.
In China, Chinese firms usually buy Korean exports, while in Vietnam, Korea invests there and the products produced there are sold there. So because of this structure, if investments rise, exports go up too. Korean companies are also shifting their production bases to Vietnam, so we expect the strong export growth to continue.
Going forward, export-reliant Korea may need more than just free trade deals. Experts say the country needs to step away from its key industries and seek to foster new growth engines that create products of added value. Kim Min-ji, Business Daily.
And to tell us more about the effects this deal has had on the two countries' economies, Professor Yang Jun-suk from the Catholic University of Korea joins us in the studio today. Great to have you here.
Happy to be here.
So what would be your evaluation of the Korea-China FTA and its impact over the past year?
Okay, well, it's not been great, but it's not entirely the FTA's fault. Now, you have to remember that FTA cannot force people to buy what they don't want. What FTA does is that if they want to buy something from a certain country, it makes the process easier and less expensive. Now, what's happened in China is that they had very difficult global economy, so their exports fell, and their domestic economy is slowing down. So as a result of that, their domestic consumption has fallen. So generally, they bought less exports, less imports overall. People who are very familiar with the FTA give it a passing grade, partially because, well, the FTA only opened part of the market so far. It's a 20-year process. And if you compare the items which are opened by the FTA with items which are not yet opened by the FTA, then the fall in exports have been less with the parts which are opened by the FTA.
Now, I think to evaluate this FTA further, I think it's important for us to look at the state of the Chinese economy. So how are conditions changing there?
Okay, well, as I mentioned before, the Chinese economy is facing a slowdown. The growth rate has fallen from 10% range in the end of last decade to about 6.7% this year, and they're projected to fall a bit more, 6.5% next year.
Okay.
But in addition to that, there's a global slowdown, as I mentioned, so Chinese exports are down, and there's been some concerns about what's happening domestically. The biggest mine that they're having right now is that their non-banking financial institutions are in a somewhat shaky position because they've lent a lot of money to their real estate market, so they're afraid that if the real estate market turns out to be a bubble, then they may have a very large adverse effect on the domestic economy. And I think people are somewhat nervous because of that. We've seen a lot of problems with the Shanghai stock index in the last couple of years. So things like that are making Chinese consumers, I think, more nervous about spending a lot, and that's also affecting the Korean economy.
Now, going back to the exports, which have fallen for a third straight year, China's investment in Korea actually went up 8.5% as of September. So tell us more about how this deal has helped to promote investment.
Okay, well, FTAs nowadays are concerned as much with investment as with trade. And the Chinese investment into Korea has risen by about 8.5%, and investment from other countries which seek to export to the China has increased by 13.4%. Now, if we look at some of the companies that China has been investing in Korea, it ranges from financial institutions, technology companies, and even baby products. In fact, this was very interesting because the Chinese people have a lot of faith in Korea Korean baby products a lot more than their own domestic products. So they've been very enthusiastic about importing baby products from Korea, and this was just an extension of that. And you have to remember, once China invests wholly or partially in Korean companies, the Chinese government will be more reluctant to stop exports of those goods. So as long as the production facility or the technology facility is located in Korea, those type of investment will probably help Korea more than hurt it.
Then what role do you think this FTA should play, especially at a time when the two countries are at odds over this U.S. missile defense system, THAAD, on the Korean Peninsula?
Well, if you look at the type of so-called retaliation that China has been implementing, they've mostly taken place through things like limiting cultural Hallyu products, Hallyu concerts and so on, or tightening the requirements for visas, or tightening the requirements, license requirements for investment in China. And a lot of these are not covered by WTO agreements or FTA agreements. In fact, they've been fairly good about maintaining the letter of the law in maintaining those agreements. But to take an example of Hallyu, the reason that they can't tighten up on those Hallyu exports from Korea is that they're not covered by these agreements. In fact, there's things like screen quota in movies, screen quotas on TVs, and it was actually, both sides wanted it, but Korea itself didn't really want to open the cultural market because Korea also has those type of screen quotas, those type of limitations on cultural imports. So I think even though we wanted it, now that China is using it against us, we're sort of more reluctant about keeping these restrictions.
Well, this is definitely an issue that will continue to develop and evolve. But if the FTA between the two countries continue to bring positive results, do you think that could contribute to other trade deals in place that Korea has in place with other countries?
Okay, well, I think right now we have a couple of deals which involve China in some way. Korea-China Japan FTA and the RCEP FTA. Having a good, better performance from Korea-China FTA will definitely help those agreements. But because those are agreements with multiple countries, it's not all up to China and Korea.
Now, looking ahead, what are some of the things that we should keep a close eye on so that the Korea-China FTA will continue to bear fruit?
Okay, well, the biggest factor is whether the Chinese and the global economy recovers, because as I mentioned before, FTAs cannot force people to buy your products. So what we need is a global recovery first, and then what the government should do is try to make sure that China carries out the letter of the agreement so that Korea can take the maximum advantage of any recovery which may come.
All right. Thank you so much for your insight today, Professor.
Thank you.
The heads of Korea's top 3 shipbuilders have been named among the 100 most influential people in the global shipping industry. Lloyds List, one of the world's oldest running journals for the maritime industry, placed Daewoo Shipbuilding and Marine Engineering CEO Chung Sung-nip as 76th for his willingness to deal with the troubled shipbuilders' issues head-on. Samsung Heavy Industries' Park Dae-young and Hyundai Heavy Industries' Choi Gil-sun were named 87th and 93rd, respectively. Meanwhile, in the top 10 players, Hanjin Shipping, its largest creditor KDB, and the Korean government collectively landed second place, with the journal suggesting the country rethink its growth model in light of the demise of Hanjin. Foreign direct investment pledged to Korea's 8 free economic zones is expected to reach a 4-year high this year. According to the Ministry of Trade, Industry and Energy, the total committed amount is set to be about $2.4 billion, up around 66% from last year. The Incheon Free Economic Zone received the most of about $1.5 billion, followed by Busan with $460 million. But in terms of the actual sum executed, investments stopped at about $590 million, similar to last year, leading to greater calls for efforts to attract as well as retain pledged funds. The high-end hotels in the capital city of Seoul are thinking outside the box to serve their clients who are watching their wallets. A number of five-star hotels are offering more down-to-earth extras, from lunchbox delivery to convenience stores. Our Eunice Kim tells us more.
This is the first 24-hour convenience store to enter a luxury hotel in Seoul. At a space typically occupied by boutiques along a connecting corridor to COEX, this GS25 boasts a premium decor and offerings.
We have figurines, duty-free items, things that travelers might want that aren't available in other stores.
From the south of Seoul to this five-star on Namsan Mountain, there's a built-in alleyway that houses a number of eateries inside the Grand Hyatt, like this hole-in-the-wall where chefs serve up chobap or sushi and grilled skewers at a more approachable price.
This is our effort to move away from being a formal and intimidating space to one that's more comfortable and intimate.
Over east in Dongdaemun, What the Truck is JW Marriott's pop-up cafe, offering drinks and desserts at a lower price point than inside the hotel. The hotel also added a galbi lunchbox to its existing in-house delivery service.
Instead of just filling in their stomachs, our customers demand a quality meal that suits their needs, so we are directly delivering what they want.
Seoul's luxury hotels are not far removed from consumers' demands for a bigger bang for their buck. As the Kim Young-lan anti-graft law also dents their bottom line, high-end hotels are evolving to better serve a public near and far searching for a better value. Eunice Kim, Business Daily.
And that brings us to the end. But we'll be back tomorrow with more at the same time, same place for your Business Daily. So don't forget to tune in then. Thanks for watching and see you soon.